Sabenanika Ibiminutu to Ralph Reads, brought to you by TURN, the United Ronin Networks. My name is Ralph Anthony Garcia, also known as R4. Please like, share, comment, and subscribe to the United Ronin Networks. We are Ronin. On this edition of Ralph Reads, I will continue Black Gangster by Donald Goines. Amunini. Let the reading commence. Chapter 9. Shortman parked in front of a small, unpainted two-family flat. "Donnie," he said to the husky, light-skinned man next to him, "can you reach that wrench on the back seat?" The young man reached over and picked up the wrench. He climbed out of the car and met Shortman on the sidewalk. Both men were extremely well-dressed. Earlier in the evening, they had attended the meeting at the auditorium where Prince had been arrested. Now, they were worried about the consequences. Both men were known to the police as members of the Rulers. "You know, Shortman," Donnie began, "it's kind of lucky Prince assigned us to this whiskey thing, man. We ain't up on none of that bullshit that's been going down, so even if we do get picked up, ain't nothing the man can hold us on." They continued up the walk and onto the porch of the unpainted house. The screen door was latched, but they could see people sitting inside in the dark. The sound of loud music filled the air. From where they stood, they could see someone dancing in the living room. Shortman knocked harder on the screen. "Come on, goddammit!" he yelled through the open doorway. A girl who looked no older than a teeny bopper came to the door. She stared out at Shortman and Donnie, then opened the door quickly. "Hi there, Shortman. Earl! Here's the big fellows, man," she yelled over her shoulder. Someone cut on a light as the two men came in the room. The house was scantily furnished. There were two couches along the wall, while the dining room was empty except for a portable record player sitting on the floor. Beside it was a stack of 45 records and two empty album covers. Two young girls were dancing together, or rather, practicing dance steps in the dining room. Earl came hurrying into the room. "Hey man, I didn't expect you. I've been upstairs taking care of business." He was tall and thin and looked to be still in his teens. His voice was shrill. Shortman nodded in his direction and continued towards the stairway, Donnie following closely. Earl and his partner waited until the two older men had passed, then fell in behind them. They went up the stairs single file. As soon as they reached the top, the first thing that hit them was the heat. Donnie blinked, dense smoke in his eyes. Both men continued until they reached the front room of the upstairs apartment. Sitting in the middle of the room was a whiskey still made out of two 50-gallon barrels welded together. From the top of it, a copper pipe ran across the room to the cooler. The specially made gas range under the cooker was blazing. Fire leapt out and around it, climbing up halfway on the outside of the connected barrels. Shortman coughed. "Goddamn thing puts out enough smoke to kill a motherfucker," he cursed and made his way towards one of the bedrooms. Donnie and the other two boys followed him closely. Inside the bedroom, barrels were lined up against the walls all around the room. The drums each contained cracked corn mixed with wheat rye plus 50 pounds of sugar. Shortman stuck his finger down in one drum and sucked the stuff off the tip. "It's bitter. Maybe you better run this batch off tomorrow, Earl." He didn't wait for a reply. He walked out and entered the bedroom next to the first one. Again, he tasted the fermenting enzyme. He removed a large paddle and dipped down into the barrel. He stirred the corn and rye and sugar up until he was sure it was well mixed. You been stirring this shit up regularly, Earl? He tasted the juice again. Damn, this bastard is still sweet. Stir them up one more time tomorrow, Earl, then leave them alone. You should be cooking this batch off sometime this weekend. Donnie stepped over and tasted the stuff. I like this shit just like it is, he said to an empty room, Shortman and the two boys having walked out. He followed them to the whiskey still and watched closely as Shortman took a small glass and tasted the harsh liquid as it came out of the cooler. God damn, this is some strong shit, Shortman exclaimed, almost blowing smoke from his mouth. How many gallons you think you gonna run off tonight? Donnie asked, watching his partner cough with amusement. I don't know, Earl hesitated. Somewhere between 14 or 16, I hope. This is the second run today, Donnie. Blue picked up 15 gallons this afternoon, so I figured our output for today to be somewhere in the neighborhood of 30. That ain't too bad, Donnie answered quietly. He removed his bankroll and peeled off 6 tens. That should be enough money for you to take care of your young girls with. He held the money out towards Earl. Earl sneered. Don't no bitch get no money out of me. Shortman laughed and led the way back downstairs. They sat around for a few minutes talking shit. Then Shortman stood up. I got to be running, Donnie, he said as soon as Donnie had finished dancing with one of the girls. What you gonna do, man? Stay here with that jailbait? Or pull up? Huh? I don't see no jailbait, the teeny bopper said from the dance floor. She pushed out her chest, trying to make her tits seem larger. Shortman laughed and started for the door. Tell me if it has any hair on it, he said, and went out. The young girl cursed. Donnie grinned and beckoned her with his finger. She came over and sat down in his lap. He put his hand under her short skirt and felt around. Is it hairy enough for you? She asked, staring into his brownish-green eyes. Don't let the hair part worry you, honey, he replied slowly, pulling her down on the couch. She stared up at him. Donnie, do you know you got green eyes? She asked huskily. She spread her legs slightly as he let himself down on her. In a few minutes, baby, you won't care what color they are, he said, then added, can you dig it? She smiled slightly in the dim room, then pressed her young, firm body against him. You gonna make me your woman? She asked naively. Once outside, Shortman took his time about leaving. He started the car up and drove slowly away. For a minute, he was tempted to go back and try out one of the teeny boppers. Young girls didn't have much fascination for him, though, so he changed his mind and went on. He decided to run by the roost and see if there was some strange cunt hanging around. He pressed down on the gas pedal and started back across town for the west side. Gazier and his partner passed the roost again. It was deserted, so they continued on. The kids were getting leery of the place, so they stayed away in droves. Both officers had just about given up hope of finding one of the big fish when Shortman drove past. There goes one of the black bastards now, Gazier yelled. His partner made a sharp U-turn, running up and over the curb in his haste to catch the other car. Shortman spotted the police car at the same time they saw him. He pressed down on the gas pedal as he saw them make their U-turn. His small Ford leapt away from the larger car for a minute, but he wasn't fooled. Shortman realized it was just a matter of time before the police car caught up with him. He searched the deserted street desperately for a place to park so he could run. Not finding a good place, he raced for the roost. If he could make the front door, it would be a sanctuary. "That bastard's looking for some place to jump out and run," the driver said harshly to his lieutenant. Gazier laughed coldly. "I hope that black son of a bitch does run." He removed his pistol from his shoulder holster. His partner, Fred, smiled. "You gon' pop the bastard, ain't you?" he asked with unwarranted glee. Both men laughed as though there was something amusing about killing a black man. Shortman watched the car in the mirror as it gained on him. He slammed on the brakes and pulled to the curb in front of the roost. Before the car had completely come to a stop, he was out of it and running for the basement stairway, not knowing that one of the officers was already aiming his pistol at his back. He hadn't reached the steps when the first shot hit him. He felt a heavy blow between his shoulder blades and stumbled. Before he could regain his stride, another blow smashed into him and he fell to his knees. The sound of shots rang in his ears. He attempted to struggle to his feet, using the building in front of him for support. He turned to glare at his pursuers. As he feebly attempted to get to his feet, he realized that he was going to die. Shortman stared at the approaching white men out of fading eyes. "You killed me," he murmured, and fell over on his face. Slowly, the neighborhood came to life. Before the officers reached the body, people were starting to come towards the scene of the crime. In a matter of minutes, the street was packed with angry bystanders. Many of them had witnessed the murder from their doorsteps. All right, break this shit up. You ain't at no goddamn movie," Gazier barked at the crowd. He moved through the people as though herding cows. They slowly backed up at his approach. He made his way to the car and called in, reporting the incident as an act of a criminal trying to escape. In less than 5 minutes, more police cars began to arrive on the scene. The police went to work dispersing the crowd. When a few people tried to explain that they were witnesses, the police ran them off. One of the officers cursed at a stubborn woman. "We don't need no fucking nigger witnesses. We got 2 officers who saw everything that happened." The crowd began to back up away from the police. There was an ugly murmur running through the group, but cool heads prevailed. In dingy cold water flats, crowded apartments, well-furnished rooms, black people were busy. Already the news was spreading to every black area in the city. It was the hottest news in the ghetto. Another black man had been shot down by the police in cold blood. Black people everywhere gritted their teeth angrily at cruising police cars. Before the night would pass, 6 different police cars would be fired on by infuriated black men who had never heard of Shortman. As soon as the news reached them, Preacher and Ronin got busy. Ronin moved with the experience of a professional executive. He got on the phone and stayed there for an hour, ordering his gang members to get off the streets. Preacher, on the other hand, moved with the anger of an aroused militant. His gang moved into the streets, burning and looting with a passion. Before the night ended, 10 members of his personal organization were arrested. When the news reached Ruby in front of the police station, she quickly got in touch with Dot and Blanca. They discussed the matter for a few minutes, then moved through the crowd preaching calmness and fortitude. They began slowly to send people home, breaking up the crowd of pickets. Inside the police station, Morales paced up and down angrily. "That's just about all we needed," he muttered. "They couldn't have picked a better time to kill someone. Here we are being picketed by over 100 people, and those fucking ignorant bastards go out and kill one of the fucking leaders of the fucking crowd." "Hey, Lieutenant," one of the officers called from the window. "Looks like they're breaking up out there." Morales glanced out the window. "Well, I don't know why, but I'm sure in the hell glad to see them go home." "You think maybe they haven't heard the news yet, Lieutenant?" a young officer asked politely. No, that wouldn't be the reason. I'd be willing to bet they know something about the shooting. That kind of thing has a way of traveling through the black communities like wildfire. Whoever's in command out there must be trying to keep down trouble. I'm glad they have some kind of common sense." Watching the crowd break up in silence, he noticed Prince's lawyer talking to Ruby and idly wondered what they were talking about. The lawyer was probably telling her not to worry. There was no doubt in anyone's mind about whether or not they could hold Prince. As soon as the courts opened in the morning, they would have to release him. That trumped-up murder charge they had pulled him in on would never stand up in front of a judge, but it gave them a chance to put the pressure on Prince's ass. Lieutenant Gazier and Fred came through the back of the station and stopped at the desk. Both men were grinning. The other white officers standing around the station patted them on the back as though they were heroes, cracking jokes with them. Two colored policemen turned away, shamefaced, and pretended they didn't hear what was going on. Morales walked up to his partner. "What happened out there, Gazier? We heard about it over the radio, but nothing really concrete on the shootout." Gazier stared at his partner for a minute. "Me and Fred was just cruising around, when we got this call about some black male sticking up a grocery store and escaping in a dark-colored Ford. Well, about this time, this guy speeds past us, so we took it for granted that this was the hold-up man. When we turned around, the bastard speeded up. We didn't know who was in the car, but when he stopped in front of that clubhouse, I had an idea he was one of the members. You know them bastards are capable of doing anything. Well, anyway, when the guy jumps out and starts to run, I yelled halt, but he didn't slow down one bit, so I shot over his head the first time. Then when he didn't slow down, I let him have it." "If it happened like that," Morales began, "we shouldn't have any trouble." "What the hell do you mean, if it happened like that? I just told you how it happened," Gazier snarled. "We've been getting angry calls from people who said they saw it different," Morales said coldly. "What do you mean by that, Morales? You got me and Fred's word on it. What you gonna do? Take a bunch of black bastards' word over your fellow officers?" He glared at his partner. Morales made a gesture of impatience and walked away. "It's not up to me," he said over his shoulder. "We'll leave it up to the captain to handle." Across town, Donnie walked out of the bedroom with his shorts on. His brow was pulled tight with worry. It was hard for his mind to accept the fact that Shortman was dead. The man had just left the house, and now he was lying in the morgue. It didn't matter that he had been given Shortman's former position. He enjoyed the prospect of being the big wheel now, but it carried a lot of responsibility he didn't really want. He had told the kids in the house about Shortman's death, and they were subdued from the shock. Donnie could feel the significance of it. He had a feeling that this was a turning point in his life and that he would now become one of the major actors on the stage. But he hoped not. He preferred the background. His shrewdness told him this was the best place. Donnie's teeny bopper came out of the bedroom behind him. She was wearing a half slip with nothing on top but her bra. Her eyes followed him as he paced up and down. Something inside of her wanted to reach out and take him in her arms and console him with a woman's love, but she managed to stifle the emotion. He would resent it, she realized. She leaned against the wall and watched him patiently until he came over and took her hand and led her back into the bedroom. Donnie knew with certainty that his promotion sealed his doom. He was caught in a box. There was no way out. He had 7 brothers and sisters at home who were dependent on him. He had to make big money to survive. Between him and his mother, the house was run. His younger brother was preparing for college, so he knew he needed the promotion. He made up his mind to make as much money as possible before the end came. Maybe that way there will be enough money to hold his people until one of the younger ones could help. From where Prince sat in his cell, there was no way to tell when morning came. He waited patiently until a trustee showed up and pushed a hard roll under his door. The trustee pushed his face against the bars and whispered, "Hey, Prince, that you in there?" Prince got up and peeped through the small bars. "Yeah, man, it's me. What's the deal?" "Your partner, Chinaman, told me to tell you that Shortman got hit. He says the cops killed him last night." The trustee's voice was low, just carrying through the bars. Prince was stunned. "What? Man, you sure he knows what he's talking about?" "Yeah, man, I'm sure. That's all the rollers are talking about upstairs. Seems like this stud Shortman got blasted running from the scene of a holdup." "That's bullshit," Prince cursed, then asked, "Who shot him, man? Can you get me the name of the pig that fucking shot him?" "That ain't no problem, baby. It was Lieutenant Gazier, man." Prince returned to his seat, not even bothering to answer. His heart was filled with rage. It couldn't be anything but a frame-up. Shortman never carried a gun, and the last thing he would be involved in was a hold-up. He swore angrily and started to pace his tiny cell. Even the offensive odor was beyond him now. He waited impatiently for the footsteps of the turnkey. Chapter 10. After leaving the interrogation room, Prince stopped at the desk and picked up his personal belongings. The idle officers stared at him coldly. He returned their glares look for look. His lawyer came in with Chinaman. Both men remained silent until after Chinaman had picked up his stuff and they had left the station. "I'm sorry about you guys having to put up with that crap all night, but that damn murder charge stopped me from being able to spring you on a writ or bond," the young lawyer explained. The sound of a horn blowing caused Prince to look up. Ruby was sitting at the curb behind the steering wheel of one of their cars. "I understand, man," Prince replied. "But regardless of us, what's the deal on little Larry? I want him out, man, as soon as possible." "Don't worry, everything's under control." The lawyer's voice was smooth and convincing. "As soon as Larry comes up for his examination, we'll have that damn case thrown out. They're trying to be clever by using those murder charges, but it won't work. If they don't come up with any more evidence than what they had before, the judge will have to dismiss the case." "See that it is," Prince replied coldly and walked off. As he neared the car, Ruby flashed her magnificent teeth in a lovely smile. Blanca got out of the passenger side and smiled at Chinaman. "Hi, honey," she said as he got in. Her voice was soft and filled with love. As the car pulled away from the curb, the women started to tell the news, but they were cut off. "We already know about it," Chinaman said. "Preacher and his bunch went on a rampage last night," Ruby said slowly, feeling out her man's reactions. "Yeah, I'll bet that helped a lot," Prince said, not even attempting to hide the sarcasm. "It ain't about that," he continued. "We can't beat the man in the streets fighting. Whitey got all the guns and tanks in the fucking world. What this thing is all about is cash. If we get enough of that green stuff, we'll be able to handle shit like this." Both women felt disappointed because neither man had commented on the picket they had thrown around the station. Both of them remained silent, listening to the men. "You know, I was thinking, man," Chinaman began. "Last night, while I was locked up, I kicked the idea around, Prince, and I believe I'm going to come down strong on all the pimps and hustlers in our neighborhood. You know, man, we got damn near as many Mexican pimps as you got black pimps in our neighborhoods." Prince glanced up sharply. "Yeah, man," Chinaman continued. "I figured if we put the arm on some of these guys who keep talking about doing something, but try and make a whore out of every broad that comes their way, we could show our neighborhood that we're really trying to do something." Prince hushed Ruby when she started to say something. He wanted to listen to Chinaman. "After the way them cats at the auditorium went for our speeches last night, Prince, it's only right that we really try and do something for our people. Man, this organization crap can really turn out to be a big thing." "Yeah, man," Prince replied suddenly. "I'll give it some thought. But you hold on, Chinaman. Don't put no pressure on them guys yet. We got to think this thing out. Ruby, head for the hideout, baby. I can take a bath and change clothes out there. We better talk to them studs out there, too, 'cause some of them might be a little worried about this shooting." Prince leaned back against the seat and closed his eyes. His instincts warned him that Chinaman could become a problem. He knew just what had happened. The guy had gotten a taste of power last night. He couldn't see it any other way. Dedication to a cause was beyond Prince's imagination. Everybody had to think of number one, he believed. It never entered his mind that Chinaman really believed that they could do something constructive for the people in the ghettos. As far as Prince was concerned, there had always been ghettos, and there would always be ghettos. The people who lived there either learned how to get out or died in the small confines of their prison. It was cut and dried. He was well aware that he knew how to get out. All it took was money. There were two kinds of people in the world, the haves and the have-nots. If you were hungry, if you needed clothes, if your rent was overdue, take it. It was better to be a taker than one of those who got took. When they got to the hideout, there were 3 black sedans and 2 Cadillacs parked in the private driveway. The house was one of the old mansions on Chicago Boulevard, kept at one time by a millionaire of the auto industry. The place still held a magnetic glory. "Man, oh man," Chinaman exclaimed as their car pulled around to the side of the house besides a 50-foot swimming pool. "How did you manage to swing a place like this, Prince?" he asked excitedly. Prince grinned. "I went through my lawyer. For $500 extra fee, he'd find some way to sell his mother." The car came to a halt and was immediately surrounded by a crowd of boys and girls. They had heard about Prince's arrest, and at the sight of their leader, they screamed their happiness. "Prince," a young girl wearing shorts called, "if this is what you and Ruby call a hideout, I hate to see what kind of pad you and her stay in." "Don't worry," Prince yelled back good-naturedly. "You and your man won't be left out of the goodies." Kids began to stick their heads out of the windows as news of Prince's arrival came to them. A large group of kids came running out of the house yelling at the newcomers. Prince shouted over the uproar, "Chinaman, find preacher, then y'all get all the boys together someplace. We got some important matters to kick around." He spoke lower to Ruby. "Baby, you see to it that all the broads are taken inside the house until we get some matters taken care of." He watched her as she rounded up the girls with Blanca's help. After they had been herded into the house, Prince waited until Chinaman returned with Preacher. They had rounded up most of the boys. In front of Prince, there was a sea of faces, all of them young and dangerous. Prince raised his hand for silence. "All of you are aware of what happened last night to Shortman, so we won't even get into that. It ain't no new thing to us. We've been hep to what the white man calls justice." His voice went up on the word. "Justice means just one thing. Just us. That's the only way Whitey looks at it. Just us. And he wants us to accept justice for just us. Well, we ain't going for it. We know what he means, so we can get down. Leave the bullshit for the squares who don't know no different." He waved down there, yelling impatiently. "There have been some changes made since quite a few of you came out here, so I've made it a point to send enough girls out to keep you from getting bored." He smiled as they grinned. "We may be out here for a while, so I want all of you to understand where we stand." Prince stepped back to brush some imaginary dust off his silk suit. There were no wrinkles in his clothes to reveal that he had spent the night in jail. "Every one of us out here is going to have to do his share," he said, "if we want to come out of this on top." He stared out over the crowd, waiting for the murmuring to die down. "If we don't stick together now, a week from today, every one of us will be in jail." As a mutter of discontent broke out, Prince raised his hand for silence. "There's not a man out here who's not involved in this trouble up to his goddamn neck, so just shut your mouths and listen. I went to the trouble of having everybody I could reach brought out here, so there ain't no one left to put the finger on anyone." "What about Larry?" Preacher asked suddenly. "He could put some of us on the spot." As the sun beat down on them, Prince stared at Preacher's dark face. Preacher's eyes were hard, bleak, unreadable. "Don't worry about Larry," Prince snapped. His eyes flashed sparks as he stared at the crowd of men around him. He was like a lean and hungry lion, aware of the responsibility of keeping his pride in line. From growing pressure, his reflexes had sharpened. Though he ruled over vicious creatures, he was by far the most vicious. His voice lashed out at the men. "I'll have Larry out of the county jail before next week. If he don't talk, if he starts to run his goddamn mouth, I'll have his mammy and every goddamn baby in her motherfucking house killed." He hesitated for a moment, then added, "And that goes for any of you that might get diarrhea of the mouth." His words carried a dangerous meaning that was not lost on anyone. All the men knew it was no idle threat. "Actually," Prince said into the silence, "we don't really have anything to worry about. Just 'cause the papers have been playing up to that second-degree murder charge, that really don't mean shit. I got an iron in the fire, so when I pull it out, Larry will be out on the street on Bond fighting a case of joyriding." The crowd broke into loud laughter. Chinaman stepped up and waved for silence. "They're gonna have Shortman's funeral sometime this week, but most of you won't be there. Prince Dunn already told me who to take, so if you ain't in the bunch, Don't get no attitude. It's just plain safe. That's all. Ain't no reason to let the man pick you up just 'cause someone got hit. It's sad, but it don't change the game. We're playing for big stuff, so the duel's gonna be high times. There's one thing you ain't gotta worry about, though. We're gonna send them off in style, so won't nobody be able to say we ain't looking out for our people. There will be enough of our people there so that everyone will know Shortman wasn't no loser. The crowd gave Chinaman a roar as Prince took his arm and led him towards the house. "That's my main man," Prince said softly out of the side of his mouth as the men went up the winding path to the rear of the house. Prince waved at some girls lying in sun chairs on the recreation porch as they passed the kitchen. He waved at another bunch. They walked into the study where 4 more young, beautiful girls were hanging around listening to records. "Beat it," Chinaman ordered sharply. "What the hell do you think this is, a ballroom?" "What the hell goes on around here?" a young girl with a short natural asked. "First you run us from the pool, now from the house. What is this, some form of a new concentration camp?" "I don't care if you go play with yourselves. Just get the fuck out of here," Chinaman replied. 2 of the girls yelled something smart over their shoulders as they went out the door. "Wait a minute," Prince called. They stopped and waited in the doorway. "One of you find Ruby for me and send her in here," Prince ordered, then closed the door on them. He sprawled out on the couch and stretched. "God damn, I'm tired. I think I'm gonna take a quick nap, Chinaman. I didn't get no kind of sleep in that funky hole last night. Man, that's a funky place if I ever smelt one. Ain't nothing like that in the penitentiary." There was a sudden knock on the door and Ruby walked in. "What's up, baby?" she asked slowly as she crossed the room. "I want you to make a run for me, Ruby." Prince lit a cigarette before continuing. "We're gonna need some more weed and coke, so take one of the cars and run across town and pick some up from Billy. Get enough to hold us out here for a while, too." She started to get up from the couch, then stopped. "Baby, I've been thinking. Since we started this new organization, we ought to make somebody else the Minister of Finance instead of Ronin." Prince waited so long before replying that she began to think that he hadn't heard her. "Why?" The question caught her by surprise. "You don't think he's been stealing anything, do you?" "It's not that, Prince," she replied. "I don't know if he's ripping us off or not. The thing is, he has too much say-so about the money. The way everything is set up, he's just about the only one next to his woman who knows what's happening with our bankroll." Ruby hesitated, then added, "Our income, counting the whiskey and dope money alone, is somewhere around $52,000 a week. That's a lot of money, Prince, even though I'm counting just the gross. With our overhead, we ain't clearing $5,000 a week." Prince stretched and got up. He walked over to the desk and opened the drawer with a key. His fingers ran down a page quickly. "At this moment, we got 800 people on our payroll, Ruby. That's a lot of kids." He held his hand up before she could speak. "I know they don't get that much. Some of them, though, make more than you realize. The kids we got cooking the goddamn whiskey make anywhere from $200 to $400 a week. The pushers that work for us come even higher." Prince examined the small notebook he had taken from the drawer. "I'll go along with your judgment, though, Ruby. If you think we're giving Roman and his woman too much play with our cash, I'll tighten up. But who in the fuck can I put in charge of the new bookwork and money problems? This new organization is going to be one sharp pain in the ass for me. I just don't have the time to spend on it." "Put Blanca in charge of it," Ruby replied quickly. "She's good with figures. Plus, she done been through high school. I'll put a couple of other girls on the case with her, and they can watch each other." She smiled at Chinaman, taking the sting out of her words, but he wasn't fooled. He knew she meant just what she said. "What about Dot, Ruby? You think you might be able to put one of those young bull dykers you tight with on the case and find out if Roman is playing sticky fingers with our bread?" Ruby shook her head. "It wouldn't do no good. Dot is colder than any Jasper we could put on the case. No, that ain't the answer. It ain't no weak spot there. In fact, she added, we have a better chance playing on Ronin than we would fucking with Dot. We ain't gonna take down nothing messing with her. Prince put the notebook back in the desk drawer and locked it. I'm gonna take a nap, Ruby. While you're gone, when you get back, wake me up, okay? Oh yeah, he added as though it had slipped his mind. Stop by Shortman's mother's house and let them know we're paying all the expenses. She can keep the insurance money if there was any. When Ruby left, Prince made his way upstairs and took a quick bath, washing the jail smell out of his skin. He stretched out on the bed and instantly fell asleep. It was later in the afternoon when CHINAMAN came up to the luxurious bedroom and knocked softly at the door. At the sound of Prince's voice, he entered. Ruby just pulled up, he informed Prince. A young girl came in behind him with a tray. Prince removed a piece of chicken from it, walked over to the window, and pulled back the drapes. He glanced out of the window as CHINAMAN walked out of the door. Ruby was just stepping out of a snow-white Cadillac. The car gleamed like crystal in the strong rays of the afternoon sun. Ruby was dressed immaculately, wearing a tight white miniskirt with matching blouse and a wide black belt and black heels. Not a speck of dust was visible on her or the car. Both appeared to have been wrapped in cellophane, then released from it and placed down in the driveway. She seemed totally unaware of the impression her figure was making as she leaned into the back seat and removed the suitcase. The young man watched her voluptuous body with male lust. Out of the 20 or more young girls already there, none of them could compare with Ruby. She started to walk up the driveway, her long, smooth legs displayed to perfection. She stopped and slammed the suitcase down. Damn it, she swore. One of you gaping sons of bitches come and carry this goddamn thing. Hawk, a short, husky, brown-skinned young man in his early 20s, rushed over and picked up the suitcase. He followed her into the house. When she reached the study, Ruby stopped and took the suitcase from him. Thank you, darling, she said lightly, and waited until he had retracted his steps before opening the door leading into the study. Prince will be down shortly, CHINAMAN stated as he watched her set the suitcase on an end table. Ruby sat down and made herself comfortable. They didn't have long to wait. Prince opened the door and stepped in. His glance went to the suitcase, then back to her face. He noticed her change of clothes and smiled. What's the deal, baby? You trying to give the other girls a little competition? Ruby smiled back at him. I was only trying to bring my small existence to your attention, Prince. It seems that you forget what my main function is sometimes. The tone of her voice changed suddenly. I couldn't get all you wanted, Prince. All I could shake loose from him was 10 pounds of reefer and 6 pieces of cocaine. 6 pieces of girl? Prince exclaimed angrily. God damn, Ruby, it should have been more coke than that left. Billy ain't supposed to sell but so much of that shit. The rest, we got special customers to take off his hands. I thought so too, Daddy, but this is just one of our problems. What else is wrong? He asked grimly. Well, for one thing, we're having trouble with one of our heroin contacts. What's wrong? We've been having too many killings? He asked wearily. CHINAMAN got up and walked over to the portable bar, fixed 2 drinks, and brought them back to the people on the couch. No, that's not the trouble, Prince, Ruby said slowly. Our connect says he doesn't like his drop-off men getting their hands dirty dealing with dope fiends. He said he just ain't going for it, honey. I called him before I came back out here. Prince frowned angrily. What dope fiends? Prince asked harshly. The only person his drop-off men come in contact with is Billy Boy. Don't you remember, Daddy? I told you about Billy. That's your dope fiend right enough. Billy, boy or girl, is a full-fledged addict. Prince walked back over to the bar and fixed 2 more drinks. Are you certain, woman? It ain't no doubt about it, Prince. I also stopped by Tess's pimp's apartment, baby, and got the real deal from her. I'm up on Tess being a user, Prince said slowly. But Billy doesn't deal with any dope fiends, and besides that, Ruby, you know as well as I do, he don't mess with no woman, period. She shrugged her shoulders. Billy boy likes the meat, Daddy. Tess's pimp is a dope fiend from the old school, so he plays up to Billy on occasion so that he can get both of their blows free. Ruby set her glass down and stared at Prince closely. I know we can't stand too much more bloodshed, Daddy, but the fag is shooting 10 to 15 things every time he goes to the cooker, and that's at least 6 times a day. Prince whistled. He sure ain't chipping then. That's a goddamn oil burner. If he's running 15 caps a shot, Prince said, that will just about do it. We cannot afford to just cut him loose. He knows too much. He hesitated briefly. He done just about signed his own death warrant. Prince stood up and began to pace the floor. His mind raced over the new problem quickly, found a solution, and settled on it. He stopped behind the bar and pushed some whiskey aside from the wall rack. He pressed a button, and a panel in the wall slid back. Ruby, he said, speaking over his shoulder, you call the connect back and have him send the next 2 kilos over to our place, 'cause Billy won't be around. Get some girls lined up who could deliver the drugs for us. Get about 4, that should do just fine. Have 2 of them pick up the money while the other 2 drop off the drugs. Prince paused for a moment, allowing his eyes to run over the assorted group of guns and knives inside the hollow wall panel. It was a small arsenal with enough guns to supply at least 20 men. I think, baby, if we do it this way, the girls won't have to worry about getting busted for sales. Possession maybe, but not sales. Ruby walked around the bar and kissed him on the neck. You take care of the inlet and outlet, Ruby, and I'll take care of Billy boy, he said coldly. Daddy, she said coyly, pulling a 10-inch carving knife from its perch. Let me take care of Billy boy, please. I don't know, Ruby, he answered softly. There's no room for mistakes this late in the game. Don't worry, Daddy, she whispered huskily. There will be no mistakes. Chapter 11. Donnie explored the flat with his brownish-green eyes. He twisted his lips in a sneer of disgust at the sight of the frayed curtains that hung over the living room windows. The wooden floor had grimy linoleum covering it, and there were crushed cigarettes all over it. A black couch occupied one wall, and opposite it was what could have passed for a deep-cushioned chair with spotted and greasy upholstery. He tapped his foot impatiently as he waited for Fran, Shortman's woman. The sight of the littered flat angered him. He wondered how Shortman had put up with living in such filth. With a much larger family to take care of, his mother would never allow her house to become anywhere near this filthy. Just a minute, Fran called from the bedroom. I'm just about ready. Her voice was loud in the small apartment. I guess you know they ain't about to hold up the funeral for you, don't you? He asked sarcastically. If there was anything he disliked, it was a trifling woman. He glanced at his watch again. He had called last night and told her what time he'd pick her up. If it wasn't for Prince, he thought, he'd walk out. Actually, he didn't give a damn if she went to the funeral or not. He hadn't liked the idea when CHINAMAN called and told him what he had to do. Finally, Fran came out of the bedroom. He cursed under his breath at the sight of her. She was wearing a tight black mini dress. With her large breasts pushing through the top, the dress seemed vulgar. She grinned at him, revealing yellow teeth. He stared at her too large nose, mannish looking natural, and wondered again what Shortman had seen in her. Besides her voluptuous body, he couldn't find anything in her favor. She had a body, though, and she was well aware of it. She made her hips sway as she started towards him. "You ready, honey?" she asked sweetly. "Am I ready?" he repeated and bit back a sharp retort. "Yeah, baby, I'm ready," he said and took her arm. She swayed towards him, brushing against him provocatively. Just for the hell of it, when they walked out of the door, he let his hand search over her body. She stopped in the doorway, giving him plenty of time to finish his feel. "Damn," she cursed. "I wish we had a little more time. We might be able to reach some kind of mutual understanding." She laughed loudly. "Maybe after the funeral, huh, Donnie?" She rubbed his hand in such a way that it was impossible to miss her meaning. "Not in your lifetime, bitch," he thought coldly. The last thing in the world he wanted was a trifling woman. "You done forgot all about Shortman, baby, mighty quick," he said shortly. She missed the sharpness in his voice. "Me and Shortman was cool, Donnie, when he was living, but ain't nothing a dead man can do for me. Don't forget, man, I got 2 kids to take care of." "I thought you was getting ADC, Fran," he said slowly. "Shit, man, you know ADC ain't no money. How you expect me to really live off of that little shit, huh?" "I guess you didn't live off your check before you met Shortman?" he asked. This time, there was no missing the anger in his voice. She tossed him a skeptical glance. "You know as well as I do, Donnie, that those babies belong to Shortman." He made a gesture of impatience. "Shortman, hell, Fran. I knew you when you was fucking before Shortman ever came into your life. You may have told them kids was his, but baby, you'd have to do a hell of a lot better than that to make me believe it." Fran stopped and put her hands on her hips. "I don't give a fuck if you believe me or not. I'm getting money from ADC in his name, so what you think is your goddamn business." She started towards the car, then stopped. "If you don't want to take me to the funeral, I can get there without your help, you know." "I'll take you," he said hurriedly. "You ain't got to get your ass up on your shoulders, though." She turned with the lean motion of a sinewy leopardess and stood before him quivering. "I don't know who or what the fuck you think you are, nigga, but I don't have to take no shit off you. You understand that?" He stared at her angrily, but there was an indication that her rage was mounting. He cautioned himself to be cool. It wouldn't do at all if he was to knock her on her ass. For a moment, he let the picture of her sprawled out on the ground flash through his mind. Then, just as quickly, he put it out of his thoughts. He ignored her and walked over to the black Cadillac he had been loaned for the occasion. He opened the door and held it for her, not really caring if she got in or not. "That's better," she snapped as she switched her hips past him and got in the car. He watched her as she sat down, legs wide open, skirt pulled up around her large thighs. "You might as well pull your skirt down," he said coldly. "I ain't interested in what you got to offer." He slammed the door before he could hear her loud reply. Her words still reached him, though, as he went around the car. "Black bastard!" He climbed in and started the motor up in silence, not allowing himself the pleasure of replying to her angry outburst. They drove on in silence until they reached the church. Cars were lined up and down the street. Donnie could tell it was going to be a large funeral. He pulled up as close to the front of the church as he could get, then double parked beside another Cadillac. He followed her into the church and found a seat in the rear. He watched her switch her way to the front. People were packed inside, and some teenagers were standing at the rear. He listened to the preacher with one ear while his mind traveled over other things. A lot of responsibility had fallen on his shoulders since Shortman's passing. It would be quite a while before he could go home and sleep peacefully at night. As soon as the choir started to sing, he's on the way back home. Loud crying broke out in the church. People began to file out and go up the aisle to view the casket. He made his way slowly up the aisle, and when he reached the front, he had to hold back a grin. Fran was in the front with the family, crying louder than anyone else in the church. The bitch should have been in Hollywood, he thought coldly as he walked past the body. He glanced down and looked away. Death always gave him a feeling of being very small. At the sight of it, he had a feeling it wouldn't be long before he would be lying in his own casket. Soon after he returned to his seat, people started filing out of the church towards the waiting cars. Fran stopped at his seat and whispered, "I'm going out to the cemetery with the family." He stared at her coldly. "Good," he exclaimed, and watched her walk away mad. He got up and made his way out of the church. People were still milling around inside. There were large groups of kids everywhere. Most of them were scheming to get out of going out to the cemetery. As he glanced around, he noticed he was just about the only male ruler around. There were quite a few of the girls around. He noticed Dot and Blanca moving from crowd to crowd. After a while, he realized what they were doing. When one of the women would leave a group of teenagers, the kids would slowly move towards one of the funeral cars and get in. The car would then get in line for the trip to the cemetery. Ruby slid up beside him. "Donnie, you better get away from here as soon as possible. I just saw 2 detectives on the other side of the church. I don't know if they'll bother you or not, but it's best not to take any chances." He nodded and slipped away from her. He moved through the crowd of people quickly and made his way to the car. Glancing over his shoulder, he saw the detectives looking his way. He pushed through some women rudely and almost ran towards the car. The detectives started in his direction, but they were too late. He started up the car and drove on the opposite side of the street. The man directing the funeral cars as they lined up tried to wave him down, but the only thing he got for his trouble was being almost run down. People stared after the car curiously. Once Donnie got clear of the funeral traffic, he slowed down. He drove slowly, making sure he didn't break a traffic law. His first stop was to return the Cadillac and pick up his own car, a late model Ford. He relaxed a little more after he had gotten out of the Cadillac. He wondered why black men who hustled bought Cadillacs. As far as he was concerned, a Cadillac brought too much heat to a black driver. It was an open invitation for the police to stop you. After making his rounds of the whiskey stills, he began to check out the corn joints that bought his whiskey. The owners of the joints were all patronizing towards him. When he reached his last whiskey joint, he bought a bottle of beer and sat down and relaxed. The sound of the jukebox blaring loudly didn't disturb him. He settled back comfortably and enjoyed the sight of the drunks clowning. He watched the women, most of them in their 40s or early 50s, trying to dance. They twisted and belly bumped with loud squeals. One woman in a bright red dress kept glancing his direction. She finally made up her mind and came towards him. When he refused to dance, she stood in front of him and rolled her stomach. The houseman came over and chased her away. When the record ended, Donnie sent drinks over to her and the 2 women she was with. He walked over and started the jukebox back up. The women rushed back to the middle of the floor. A little later, 2 men entered, one of them wearing work clothes, the other carrying a shopping bag. From the top of the bag, a greasy pants leg could be seen hanging out. He called one of the women dancers over and an argument developed. Their voices began to rise in anger. The houseman rushed over, but he couldn't seem to quiet the man down. Finally, the heavy-set man walked out to the middle of the floor and grabbed the woman with the red dress. He held her arm tightly and yelled, "Whose dress is that you got on, Pearl?" His voice was slightly slurred from drinking. Whose dress is that, goddammit? Let me go, man. Mabel let me wear it, she shouted as she tried to break loose. Mabel, hell! The man shouted back. Mabel ain't got no dress. That's mine. I bought it for her ass. She ain't bought a goddamn thing. So get your funky ass out of it now. Right now, he screamed. She stared at him as though he was losing his mind. He shook her hard, then released her. Woman, either you take that goddamn dress off now, or I'll take it off for you. The longer he talked, the more furious he became. You ain't got no cause to take on like that, Billy, she said, filling her voice with a cordiality that fooled no one. Ain't gonna ask your ass no more, woman. Get your funky ass out of my woman's fucking dress. If you want one like it, bitch, buy one. But that one there ain't for your use. He snatched her again and shook her harshly. Her teeth were rattling before he sat her back down on the floor. He shoved a shopping bag he had been carrying into her arms. You can put these on, woman, if you want to, but you got to get your ass out of my dress right now, goddammit, he yelled. Just a minute, Bill. Can't I go to the bedroom or something? She asked, now thoroughly frightened. She grabbed the bag out of his hands and clutched it to her. He stared at her with murder in his eyes as she rushed towards one of the bedrooms. In a few minutes, she returned, the old pair of coveralls falling off her like a blanket. She held the dress out towards him timidly. The drunks sitting around the house started to laugh at the sight of her. It started slowly, then built up to a roar of wild, unfeeling, harsh laughter. The woman dropped the dress on the floor and ran back towards the kitchen. Tears of humiliation ran down her cheeks. Donnie got up from his chair, stared around angrily at the drunks, then started for the front door. He made it a point to walk across the middle of the room and step on the dress as the heavy-set man picked it up. There was a tearing sound as his foot hit the hem of the dress. At the same time, the owner tried to retrieve it from the floor. The owner glared up at the hot-eyed young man, but just as quickly decided to forget about the open insults. He wasn't afraid of the young man in front of him, but he had lived in the ghetto too long to think you could fight one teenager without worrying about his friends. He knew he could always buy another dress for his woman, but getting a new ass would be a problem. He dropped his eyes to the floor. Some instinct warned him that Donnie was searching for trouble. His whole being cried out to meet it, but a small voice in the back of his mind told him that it wasn't like it used to be. The kids nowadays didn't fight anymore. They believed in killing. Donnie stopped and stared at the man insolently. He didn't bother to apologize. There was a savage eagerness about him that was not lost on the people watching. The houseman held his breath, praying his house wouldn't be ruined by a fight. When there was no answer to his silent challenge, he whirled on his heel and continued towards the door. He cursed himself quietly as a soft-hearted bastard. The sight of the woman being humiliated had brought a lump to his throat. He realized it was foolish of him. He told himself the woman wasn't worth it, but the sight of her pitiful figure in the coveralls made him instantly want to stand beside her and stop the hurting laughter. He opened the door and walked out on the porch. It had always been like this, he thought. The sight of a baby bird hurt could bring tears to the corners of his eyes. There was no doubt about it, you big baby, he told himself. You're just too soft. He started down the steps towards his car. Another thought ran through his mind, causing him to shudder. To think that he had allowed Roman to talk him into stealing whiskey money from Prince filled him with dread. It was just a matter of time, he reasoned. Just a matter of time. We have reached the end of this portion of the Donald Goines miniseries on Ralph Reads. I would like to personally thank you, queens and kings, fellow royalty, for stopping by. You may catch up to me on Twitter, Instagram, as well as Periscope at RGMC2407. Send me an email to rgmc2407@gmail.com, where if you would like to leave a small donation, use the Zelle app or paypal.me/RGMC2407 or the Cash App. My cash tag is RGMC2407. You may also visit me on my other channel, RGMC Ralph Garcia, Master of Ceremonies, as well as right here, this channel, the United Ronin Networks. We are Ronin. Fellow royalty, pick up a good book, read a good story, and set your good self free. I appreciate you, and I love you like cooked food. I will see you kind folks on the next edition of Ralph Reads. Saluda Mabiatu.